security forces cracking down on student protesters. This is 2011, and this is happening on American soil. On the island of Puerto Rico, a U.S. territory in the Caribbean. The fight here is over fiscal policy. It's one that's being repeated across America as the Republican Party with momentum seeks to cut services and jobs to tackle budget deficits. The difference, this is also a place with a history of civil disobedience, of powerful labor movements, and a small but strong independence movement. It's the first day of the semester for Puerto Rico's university students. You can hear the noise from outside the university grounds. To get onto the campus itself, you have to pass dozens of armed police officers. And this is why. Students have been planning this demonstration for weeks now. They're protesting against an $800 tuition fee.
Esto representa el ataque más duro que ha sufrido la Universidad de Puerto Rico. Es el aumento en los costos de estudio más drástico que se ha visto en la historia de la universidad.
The students are mobilized and determined not to back down. They say the hike could price 10,000 young Puerto Ricans out of higher education.
Así que en el día de hoy queremos llevarle un mensaje a la administración universitaria de que seguimos en huelga. Como hermandad de empleados. A pesar de que me puedan suspender, a pesar de que me puedan arrestar, yo entiendo que no podemos vivir bajo el miedo, bajo la resignación.
Muy bien.
They're protesting even though the chancellor of the university has banned all demonstrations on campus, and the governor himself passed a law in the last 24 hours prohibiting any activity that's seen as obstructing education. So what they're doing could technically be illegal.
As the protest picks up, riot police close ranks behind them. Batons and shields are out. Tear gas guns at the ready.
The police are getting closer and closer to the protesters here, and we've seen some protesters wearing masks in case tear gas is used.
Protests on campus have in the past turned violent, so members of the university staff form a buffer between the police and the protesters.
Toda vez que hicimos gestiones para evitar que la policía de Puerto Rico interviniese en esta, y no vamos a permitir que la policía atropelle a los estudiantes hoy aquí frente a la torre.
The tactic seems to work. The police get orders to retreat. The change in university fees is just one part of an island-wide plan to shrink the size of the government, including the University of Puerto Rico, and plug a $3.2 billion hole in the budget. The students here are determined to fight the hike.
Para nosotros ya ganamos. A menos que ellos vengan, obviamente, de retaguardia y nos ataquen como han hecho las últimas veces.
The day may have ended in a small victory for the students, but there's a larger battle going on in Puerto Rico. Like in other parts of the United States, the territory's government is forcing through huge cuts to public sector spending. In front of the Capitol building in San Juan, there's another march. This time, the demonstrators are out in support of the man wielding the axe, Governor Luis Fortuno.
These guys here are from the Ministry of Education. One of the ministries has actually suffered some of the cuts, and they're not the only people here. If you look around, there's a cross-section of Fortuno supporters. Now, he's due to speak any moment, but as you can see, as you can feel, the excitement is everywhere.
This is the governor's annual State of the Commonwealth speech. President of Puerto Rico's PNP party, member of the powerful U.S. Republican National Committee, the first Republican governor in Puerto Rico in nearly half a century, Governor Fortuno is rising as one of America's brightest conservative stars. Elected in a landslide in 2008, he wasted no time rescuing Puerto Rico's credit rating and declaring a fiscal emergency to solve a severe budget crisis.
Un gobierno al borde de la quiebra con un crédito al borde de chatarra. Así fue que nos dejaron las cosas.
Cutting thousands of jobs and passing the largest tax relief in the island's history are policies that made him a poster boy for conservatives in mainland U.S.
Algún día, cuando lejos de los apasionamientos de la inmediatez política se escriba la historia de la primera década del siglo XXI, este pueblo llegará a conocer, más allá de todo matiz partidista, la verdadera dimensión de la crisis en que estuvo sumido Puerto Rico.
While the deficit may have been cut by his measures, the Economist Intelligence Unit projects Puerto Rico's economy will be the slowest growing in the world in 2011, entering its 5th year of recession. Unemployment is 3 times that of some U.S. states, and the average household income is about half of that of Mississippi, the poorest state on the mainland. Many Puerto Ricans have deserted the island for jobs.
The fiscal crisis of the state in Puerto Rico is that it's a self-inflicted crisis. It's very clear why it happened.
Argeo Quiñones, professor of economics at the University of Puerto Rico, is not convinced by Fortuno's methods. He says giving tax exemptions to attract large industries like hotel companies deprives Puerto Rico from new revenue and does not generate the steady jobs it badly needs.
Because this is basically a hard-line neoliberal oriented strategy in which the whole thing is that the state is too big and those areas in which the state is today present should be taken by the market. But here they want us economists to be like cheerleaders and say, oh, it's going to be good, this is going to work, and we're going to go through, and we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel right now.
We're on our way to the university right now. We've just heard that there was some form of a confrontation between the police and students. We understand that there were arrests and it turned violent. There was no media on campus though.
The situation has gotten out of control. A few minutes ago, I was personally hit by one of the police. They seem to be trying to control the crowd and they're using batons, they're using all sorts of methods. Why are you arresting him? Why are you arresting him? Why are they arresting you?
No idea, I was just running away.
Unlike the publicized protests a few days back, this time the students said they were painting the streets when the violence broke out. The Puerto Rican police refused to speak with us.
Yo soy profesor aquí y hacía 30 años que no se veía una situación como esta. Es lamentable, lamentable.
Does it scare you to operate here?
Bueno, un poco, mire, ahí está la montada.
This is absurd. This is called Calle Conciencia, Conscience Street. You can see it, and they beat them down because they were doing this. Helicopter, this is ridiculous.
Police arrested more than 25 students. The president of the university resigned 2 days later. While the U.S. media has been focusing on the recent and ongoing fights in states such as Wisconsin, where thousands have been protesting new laws to end collective bargaining rights, the same laws were enforced here for over 2 years. In March 2009, the Puerto Rican government suspended collective bargaining rights and allowed thousands of workers' contracts to expire, the very same actions which conservative governors on the U.S. mainland are beginning to take. Union members are furious.
Fact remains that in the past 2 years, what we call as Law 7 has literally demobilized and crippled the entire union movement. So we're going to beat this back. And this is not attacking the statehood party, the Popular Democratic Party. This is attacking a Republican philosophy that completely, this is the party that's anti-civil rights in America. This is the party that's anti the DREAM Act in the United States for immigrants' rights. This is the party that promotes homophobia. This is the party that's dismantling labor rights. It has arrived in Puerto Rico. They control the Senate, they control the House, they control the Supreme Court. Right? For the first time in the history of Puerto Rico, in contemporary history, you have one Republican philosophy dominating the island.
If we had not acted to eliminate the government deficit that we inherited, we would have been classified into junk bond status.
What impact are your cuts having on your average people, especially the most vulnerable in Puerto Rico?
Well, one thing that you're discovering in the Department of Family Services, which was affected less than the State Department that I had. I lost over 60% of my employees, and very few.
Yeah, but your department is not on the map to help the poorest and the most downtrodden in Puerto Rican society. The family department is.
Yeah. Well, in the case of the family department, there's not $1 of aid that has ceased to be provided to people that needed help, nutritional assistance, federal TANF money, and so forth. Second, we have outsourced some services, and we have helped the third sector to provide more social services.
So therefore, in a context like Puerto Rico, which has a real problem with poverty and unemployment, you would rather dismantle social services, privatize them, than trying to run a mean and efficient machine and cutting excess and clamping down on corruption.
No, we have not cut down on social services. Every social service.
You just told me.
No. We're cutting down perhaps on government structures that provided social services, but the service continues unabated.
Every neighborhood here has someone, a family, hit hard by the cuts. Elaine was pregnant with twins Carlos and Derek when she lost her government job of almost 10 years. Carlos found out he lost his job too, in the same department, on the same day.
Pues me sentí súper triste, imagínate, mi esposo también, los dos. No fue fácil y pues pasamos momentos difíciles.
Fue bien difícil porque no se esperaba eso como tal. A los dos nos llegó la carta el mismo día y nunca pensamos que nos íbamos a quedar sin trabajo. La casa estaba recién refinanciada y posiblemente ahora, como estamos cogiendo desempleo, pues puede que la tengamos que entregar. Y teníamos las manos atadas, no podíamos hacer nada. Fuimos abogados, se luchó el empleo de ella a través de los abogados como tal, y le dijeron que no había break, aunque estuviera embarazada, nada.
When we sat down with Puerto Rico's Secretary of Economic Development, his message was simple. Private sector growth means jobs for families. The Economist says that your economy is going to contract more than any other economy in the world in 2011. Jobs are the real problem on this island, and you're pursuing this process of privatization without any regards to that.
I think it takes that very well into account. I mean, we've seen the unemployment rate come down from a peak of around 17 or so. Now it's under 15. And that's the pattern that we're seeing.
Except that isn't the pattern. Puerto Rico's unemployment actually rose well over 16% 3 months after we filmed this interview, the highest in the U.S. The territory also has the distinction of having the highest homicide rates, the highest poverty rates, and the highest percentage of people who depend on food stamps. And when government funding for social programs is cut, inevitably, it's those at the bottom who feel it the most. There are about 50 people who come here every day to eat, even though the organizers have actually told us that they're getting enough money from the government to feed 20 people because of all the cuts. And at the same time, this is happening when more and more people are actually needing food donations. The same organization, Iniciativa Comunitaria, also has a needle exchange program for the nearly 200,000 people living here with severe drug addictions.
Since the last year of the last government and the 2 years of the actual government, we have lost 30% of our total budget.
Mercy has been in rehab for 12 days now, but her leg is in bad shape. It's literally rotting off the bone. Volunteer doctors are helping to clean the wound. It's not unusual for heroin users to cut their drugs with meat tenderizer for a cheaper, quicker fix.
These people are the better, the best, number one.
of trained volunteers on their nightly search and rescue operation. They include medical students, people in pre-med, counselors, and what they do is they find people who live on the streets who are in need of help, and they help them, they counsel them, they provide them with basic medical care and whatever else is needed. How long have you been living on the streets?
¿Hace cuánto tiempo que estás viviendo en la calle?
Bueno, llevo un promedio de 8 años. Bueno, quedé en la calle por mí mismo, por la adicción a las drogas.
The last 2 years we are seeing people that are not supposed to be in the streets, because streets are related to drug use, related to emotional sickness, and now we are getting more people that are there just because they lost their job.
In these days of international strain, popular, twice-elected native governor Muñoz Marin, aware of the agitations of a small minority of nationalistic fanatics and malcontents, administers the affairs of the Commonwealth with clear vision.
Rafael Cancel Miranda was one of those malcontents. In 1954, he and 3 other activists walked into the U.S. Capitol, unfurled a Puerto Rican flag, and fired on U.S. congressmen.
If your mother is sick, right? Or her, or my mother is sick. I'm going to fight to cure her no matter what. I don't know if I will cure her, but I'm going to fight to cure her and sacrifice myself so that my mother be okay. My country, which is my homeland, is sick in the colonial sickness. I'm going to fight in that colonization. I'm going to fight for the right to be free.
It was a violent protest against the U.S. government for successfully convincing the United Nations to take Puerto Rico off its list of colonies.
We achieved our purpose. We got the attention of the whole world.
None of his shots were lethal. After serving a 25-year prison sentence, he was pardoned by U.S. President Carter and sent back to San Juan. What do you think of Fortuno's administration?
He's selling us out to neoliberalism. He's serving the United States interest, not the people, the interest of the United States, the interest of the Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan and all that. Yes, he's serving their interest and the big money interest against the interest of their people.
And today, Puerto Rico is an integral part of the American economic system, a new frontier for business enterprise. Let us first achieve, then maintain a balanced budget, says Governor Marin.
Cancel is a known voice in a shrinking independence movement. But how Puerto Rico fits in the United States has been the biggest issue defining politics here since the U.S. invaded in 1898. This year, Governor Fortuno plans to hold a referendum to let Puerto Ricans vote on statehood or political separation, which could mean full independence for the island. To find reasons why some want the U.S. out of Puerto Rico completely, you don't have to travel far. Just a 45-minute ferry ride.
We're on our way to VIEQUES. You can probably see it over there. It's one of the islands here in Puerto Rico. It's a major tourist destination, but it used to be the site of an American military base, an important one. That base actually closed down years ago, but the legacy from that era still lives on.
Carlos ZENON is the president of the Fishermen's Association of VIEQUES, a sector he says was destroyed by Navy weapons testing.
Well, they used to call us natives. They had no respect whatsoever for us. They didn't care about our pride. They didn't care about nothing. They used to call us natives, like we were, nothing.
He was a leader in a fierce local movement that ousted the Navy in 2003.
The Navy stopped the bombing, dropping bombs by the airplane, shooting bombs from ship to land. They stopped that. Once they stopped the bombing, because they didn't leave the island, who controls the land right now at this moment? The land is controlled by fishing and wildlife. Same dog with different color, fruit of the same branch.
The road to the Navy's bombing range is closed to the public. it's dangerous to go near the live impact area where thousands of bombs still lurk.
And this is the site from the Navy dropped thousands and thousands of the lead bomb and thousands and any kind of firearms.
The Environmental Protection Agency put this area on its list of the United States' most hazardous waste sites. Navy contractors continue to detonate clusters of live bombs as part of a massive government-mandated cleanup.
Illness because they never stop with the bomb.
Residents on the island told us they believed that all the hazardous material was making them sick.
Before, they used to let us go inside the base when they used to stop bombing and let us go in the beaches. We used to eat the fish, but we didn't know. We wasn't aware that it was contaminated. But then the military comes and tells us no contamination, that we are liars. But then they come up and pull a sign, careful, contaminated area.
The US government study found the level of chemical exposure too low to threaten humans. But Nanette Rosa is taking part in a class action lawsuit against the US military.
Coral Quiñones, she's 17 years old. This is from the neuroblastoma. She already had almost all of her intestines been removed. Half of her stomach was removed. My other daughter as well, she has Ewing sarcoma. She had her right jaw being removed, replaced with the metal, and part of her bone from her right leg, and half of her teeth are gone. And they said, well, do you know that your daughter has uranium in their blood system? I said, no. And it's a high level of uranium. 99.9% of her body had uranium.
The Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry admits there were gaps in the study. It now says it's taking what it calls a fresh look at the issue. And although the Navy does not comment on health issues, it did tell fault lines that US officials are working to determine what actions may be necessary to protect humans and the environment in VIEQUES. At the university, a candlelit vigil is taking place to mark a day of police violence. Where Puerto Rico once was a testing ground for US ordnance, many here feel it has now become a testing ground for ideas on how to fix America's economic woes. But there is a fight back here, from the bottom up, about what sort of society Puerto Ricans want to live in, and ultimately about who they are.
I'm a Puerto Rican, I'm a Caribbean, I'm a Latin American. None of my gray hair is a gringo hair. I'm not a victim because I still believe in myself and I know who I am. I know who I am. And I don't pretend to be what I am not. Because when you pretend to be what you are not, you become nothing.